Good morning, good afternoon. This is Seb from Intuiface, and welcome to this session about how to use Intuiface in pre-sales engagements. This session is specifically made for design agencies or system integrators who are trying to sell interactive or classic signage projects to be made with Intuiface. For those of you who are using Intuiface for different purposes, maybe providing your sales team with a tool to sell your own products, please stay within the session. You might get some new ideas about how to use it for your own purpose. All right, let's get into the agenda. And we will try to keep this simple today. I will not pretend to teach you everything about selling and pre-sales activities. That's not the purpose here. We're going to talk about how to use Intuiface during these phases. So let's take a simple example in 3 phases. Phase 1, the first call, the discovery call with your prospect, learning about the project, presenting yourself. Phase 2, doing a bit of homework on your side and preparing. Phase 3, the second call and or meeting. Hopefully we'll have some on-site meetings soon this year in 2021. Let's start with phase 1. And the first place you can use Intuiface for yourself is to present your company, present your work, present your knowledge, maybe some past projects. And I'm going to show you a few examples through this session and mainly how I use Intuiface myself during my pre-sales activity. You might be familiar with the Intuiface presentation, which is available on our marketplace. If you're not, go there and download it. It's available for free and it might give you some ideas. Usually I start with what you've seen here on the left, the home scene, scroll collection showing what we do, our partners, and what are the key features of the platform. Then usually I go with the showcase, playing maybe a medley of a video. And then this is where the first place where I can decide exactly what content I need to show to this particular prospect by using the filters and my Excel file, which I have in this showcase, to point the right video to this customer to make sure we are talking about the right type of projects. The next thing that usually comes up is something about a process or an architecture. For us, that's the Intuiface architecture. For you, it might be your project process, how much time it takes, what are you starting with, where is the design phase, how works the delivery, what is the maintenance and after project phases. This is where usually I go with my drawing annotation. You may have heard me doing this. Story starts on the left, composer, you import your content, the images, videos, etc. You go to the cloud. You know the drill about Intuiface. My point here, by having this kind of tool available during your live presentation, during your meeting, you can adjust your speech to who you're talking to and to their questions. It's, in my opinion, a much better way to engage and to make sure that your audience is captive and is reacting to what you're trying to tell them, which is not that easy in a webinar like this where I don't know what you're doing right now. But in the meeting, this technique usually works well and gets the attention of the audience. Another thing I use in this experience is the Intuiface. It's another sample you can download for free in the marketplace. Again, based on an Excel file, feel free to change this by your own past projects. Change the city tile with your own image and show the different projects you may have done in the past. What are the different use cases that would, for example, be possible in a retail store if your prospect works in retail? What kind of hardware you might propose them? What kind of solution you might propose them? So Intuiface can also be a good resource for you. Moving forward, how to use this experience, this Intuiface experience presenting yourself. And here is, again, how I use it myself. So what you're going to see here is my desk. And on the left, you have my main touchscreen with the experience running, the Intuiface presentation I just talked about. On the right screen, you have my notes and my notes about the customer who I'm talking to, so I know exactly what questions I should ask. And down there, let me move myself. On the laptop, that's just an audience screen to show what actually the audience is going to see. Right? That was for the purpose of the video. So you can see when I interact with the screen, it's super reactive. And the people in front of you or on the other side of the webcam will actually exactly see what you're doing on the screen and how would their customers, their end users, be able to use such an interactive signage solution. You may have also noticed that the video playback is very good. So if you want to show a video of your project within the Intuiface experience using Zoom, Teams, Skype, whatever, it works pretty well. So that's one way of using Composer or Player, I should say, in these times where you're doing a lot more web conferences than on-site. By the way, The experience I showed you and the one I'm using myself was designed for our trade shows back when trade shows existed. And we were using it on a 65 or 75 inches screen most of the time. I'm just running now on my 24 inches desktop. I didn't change anything. Last thing for this first call is make sure you gather as much information as possible about your prospect's needs. That includes, okay, obviously, what do we want to create? What it would be the experience workflow? Who are going to be the users? What would be the environment? Public area, private area like an office? How many users? How long should they stay in front of a kiosk? If it's a kiosk in retail, maybe 20 seconds, maybe 1 minute max. If it's in a museum, could be 3-5 minutes. It really depends on the environment and the use case. What is the project timeline? Hardware, do they already have something and it's locked and you need to play with that? Or can you recommend the right hardware for the right project? That's super important. And data sources, get an idea, a first idea about what kind of data will be involved in the experience. How will you connect to it? What is the volume of the data? And last but not least, try to determine objectives with the prospect. Yes, very early in the project, try to understand why do you want to make this project? Why do you want to put this kiosk in this store? And can you measure these objectives? Are you able to say, yes, this project is a success because this is where you can talk about analytics and sell your own services to create the right KPIs, the right measurements in the experience, and the right dashboards. That's a service you should include very early in the process to let them know that it's not just a classic signage where you're going to play a playlist and hope people are going to watch it. You can actually measure the efficiency of the project. Going to phase 2. So the call is done. You have all your inputs. Now it's time to maybe create a mockup in Intuiface. That might help you to win the project in front of the opponents you may have in this process. So the mockup will enable you to draft an initial workflow and show to your customer that you understood their needs and give a first idea of the navigation for the end user. Big question here, design. 2 schools, at least. Wireframe / sketchy / ugly Seb style, and I'm going to show you this one, or more realistic, almost end design for the project. 2 cases. I won't go too much into the debate, and we can talk about that in the chat. I'm actually going to ask you right now in a poll, what is the style you use in your mockups? Wireframe, it's cheaper, faster, but you need to explain to your prospect to make them visualize what the final result could be and explain that, yeah, it's a sketch, it's a mockup. And then you don't spend too much in pre-sales, too much resources, but then you will charge a project as soon as you go through the process. Or we also have some other type of customers, maybe larger design agencies with big design team, working a lot in pre-sales, investing a lot in pre-sales to actually win the project in front of strong opponents by showing something really fancy with a wow effect in this pre-sales phase. And then probably they will retroactively charge their customer on the time they spent in this pre-sales phase. That's a more risky approach, but again, it depends on who you are, how many designers you have, and what kind of project and customers you're dealing with. So, quick sample. That's actually an internal project, and you will recognize the Seb ugly style. I just put a Intuiface colored background because I was actually trying to sell this project to Vincent and Jeff internally. That's the last reference design we released a few weeks ago. So basically, when I was pitching this to Vincent and Jeff, okay, you might want to see a home screen with 3 buttons like this, showing the 3 different scenarios, maybe some text explaining what this is. And then in each scene, you will have a main area on the right with in this case, the poll, a question, and the answers. On the left, Jeff, I will need you to write something so you can inform the users what they're looking at right now. And on the corner, the code to scan for the phones. So the 3 scenes are almost the same in terms of design, in terms of functions, they are different, especially this one, which is the task board. And actually the very, very first one I shared with them, because that's Jeff and Vincent and they know me, that's the Seb style, right? Not the best. But it's in pre-sales, it's okay to show something that is functional, and that requires a lot of work to do, right, to make the project happen. So again, to give you an idea, if you haven't seen the real design, that's the home scene, fairly simple, Intuiface branded, 3 different
icons to show the three different scenarios, and then each scenario had its own style made by our graphic designer. One about the planets, one about the webinar style office environment, and one about the task board with the Airtable-based form. So workflow, design, data, use Excel. Use Excel to create a fake data set. You will probably not have access to real data at this point of the pre-sales phase. But again, it's a cheap way to create a higher volume things by copying and paste rows in Excel to show some content. Even if it's fake content, you have seen me using the vintage cars, African wildlife, and beautiful Thailand pictures. If you've seen my webinars or some of my videos, you're familiar with these collections of cars, animals, and Thailand pictures. They help me to explain filters about Excel for years now. So create some fake data sets that you can work and rework in your different pre-sales. You will gain quite a lot of time, save quite a lot of time. And then analytics, as I mentioned, think about showing the value of analytics for your customer, how to measure the return on investment of the project they are going to do with you. Same project, the mobile-driven data entry. These are the two very simple charts, right? The multiple choice poll. What kind of answers did I get from my first question? And then free-form text entry, who asked the questions? Jeff and me, because that's demo data, that's sample data. This is super simple to create. And if you create your mockup, you create your proof of concept, you can easily create the dashboard that goes with it fairly quickly. In addition to this mockup, the next thing to prepare are the additional questions you will ask in your next meeting, right? And again, I don't want to teach you your job about pre-sales, but think about trying to evaluate the design, the data structure, the analytics needs of this particular project. That will help you to provide a more accurate quote at the end of your pre-sales phase. Time to jump into the phase 3, the second call and/or meeting. And this is where there might be a question for yourself to ask. Are you going to mention, you're going to show your proof of concept, right? Are you going to mention you built it with Intuiface or not? I hope you attended Shane's session earlier today, and that should have given you an answer, right? It's a choice. Choice is yours. There are pros and cons, maybe more pros of saying you are actually building this with Intuiface, but that's something you might want to do at this point. The purpose of showing this proof of concept is to show that you understood the project requirements, and then go through your prepared questions and make sure that you're ready to close the deal and go into this project being confident about what these requirements are. Just to give you an example here, this is a prospect that came to us. The first meeting was done by one of my colleagues, one of our sales guy, and long story short, they wanted to do a web browser 2x2 video wall with quadrants, with possibility to zoom on one of the quadrants, and with something easy to change the content, to customize what content goes in what quadrant and these kind of things. So my colleague came to me and said, okay, we're going to have a second call. Here is the idea. Can you help me explain how it's doable? And for this particular case, I said, let's do a proof of concept. That will be the best way to explain that, yes, it's doable. So this is where I built this particular experience. So what you see right now is one single experience, full HD, 4 quadrants, 4 web browsers, a little menu, really SEB style here, you can see, where you can actually select one of the quadrants and zoom on one of them, which is basically scaling it full screen. You can jump between the quadrants, showing that you can jump between 2 without going to the mini view, or you can just reset to the main view if you're not using the wall anymore. And then for the admin guy, this is where that's again Seb's design, but it's functional. So yeah, I want to put this analytics dashboard on my top right screen. Done, send the command, and then you can adjust which URL, which web content you want to put on which screen. That is fairly simple to build, right? And showing that, yes, it's doable. You want to try it? That's the next point. So once you've built this kind of sample, what do you do with it? The first thing, and that's a big recommendation from me, do not edit the mockup live during a call. Years ago, I was tempted to do that. That would only show that Intuiface is easy to use, it's fast to make adjustments, and it could lower your quote. They would say, okay, that's super easy. Why do you charge me X amount of money? Again, don't show all your secrets. Show you're building on top of a reliable platform, which enables you to be quick, reactive, and agile.
but don't show all your tricks also. And then the last point, that's the sharing point. Do or don't. Up to you. The choice is yours again. If your prospect wants to actually test this on their hardware, which they may already have, you can share the mockup via URL with the play only kind of link, so they can just give it a try, experiment on their side. Even at this stage, it can be risky. It's your call. It depends on the relationship you have with this particular prospect. And I'm right on time for Q&As. So let's jump to the live Q&As. I hope you enjoyed the session. I hope you learned some things. Please use the chat. Give us your thoughts. How are you using Intuiface in your pre-sales engagements? And now let's jump to the live questions. Thank you.